Hi everyone, this is Dr. Hatami. In this video, we're going to talk about human evolution. By the end of this chapter, you will be able to describe the origin of life on Earth in simple terms, explain what evolution is and what it means for living organisms, identify the main mechanism of evolution, including natural selection, you'll be able to recognize the different types of evidence scientists use to show the evolution has occurred, such as fossils, biogeography, anatomy, and molecular data, and then understand the basic classification of humans within the primate group and summarize the major steps in human evolution in a very simple way. Let's get started. Okay, now let's see how life has been created. So, the life on Earth began about 3.5 to 4 billion years ago, and it started from non-living chemical. Scientists describe this process in four major stages. Stage 1, formation of small organic molecule. Stage 2, formation of macromolecules or large biological molecules. Stage 3, the formation of protocells, which were not true cells yet. Stage 4, the appearance of the first true living cells. So as you can see in this picture, through some chemical evolution, the stage 1 and 2 happen, and then through biological evolution, stage 3 and 4 happen. Okay, so stage 1, formation of organic molecules. About 4 billion years ago, early Earth looked very different than right now. There were only volcanic gases, no oxygen, and then the water existed as a vapor. Then the environment was full of lighting, heat, and strong UV radiation. These conditions allowed simple inorganic molecules to chemically react and form organic monomers like amino acids and nucleotides. These are the building blocks of life. And then after years and years and years, formation of macromolecule at stage 2 happened once we had these amino acids and nucleotides as our monomers. Then they joined together and made the polymers or macromolecule like protein, DNA, RNA. So in stage 2, we move from small molecules to larger biological molecules needed for life. And then after years and years and years, or a few million years, simple cell-like structures called protocells appeared. So these protocells actually were not true cells yet, but they had some important features. They could do like the simple basic metabolism, but they didn't have DNA, so they couldn't actually reproduce. They depended on their environment for organic molecules. They could not make their own food, so then they absorbed the organic molecule from their environment for to get the energy, and because there was no oxygen on early Earth, they made energy through fermentation. Actually, protocells were the stepping stone between chemistry and real living cells. So again, after years and years and years, eventually protocells gained the ability to replicate, and this marks the formation of the first true living cells. Um, so these first cells were simple, anaerobic cells that lived without oxygen. Scientists have two major hypotheses for how the first living cell formed: RNA first hypothesis and protein first hypothesis. The idea of the RNA first hypothesis suggests that RNA was the first genetic material. So the RNA can store information and could act like an enzyme. So early RNA molecule might have been able to copy themselves and later give rise to DNA and proteins. So they said it was at first RNA and then they could make DNA and also protein. But we also have the protein first hypothesis. This hypothesis suggests that protein formed before the genetic material. So it was protein at first, and then they could actually carry out basic metabolic reactions because they could act as an enzyme. Then later, the genetic material like RNA and DNA evolved to store information. So both hypotheses actually try to explain how protocells transitioned into the first true living cells. Okay, so after life has been made, then evolution happened. But what is evolution? Now let's talk about what evolution means. The definition of evolution is actually very simple. Evolution means change over time. Any change that happens in a population, in organism, or even in molecules over a long period of time is considered evolution. That's it. We can divide evolution into two main types. We have chemical evolution and biological evolution. Chemical evolution refers to the changes that happened before life existed on Earth. During the chemical evolution, simple molecules gradually formed more complex molecules, and eventually this process led to the formation of the first cells. So chemical evolution explains how non-living chemicals slowly became the building blocks for life. Biological evolution started after the first living cells appeared. This is a type of evolution we usually talk about, how species change over time, how new species form, how life becomes more diverse. So biological evolution includes concepts like natural selection, genetic variation, mutation, adaptation, and genetic drift. Now that we know what biological evolution is, let's talk about the mechanism of biological evolution. So these mechanisms all work together to change population and create diversity in life over time. There are several main mechanisms. One of them, which is super important, and we are going to talk about this a little bit in detail, is natural selection. Traits that help an organism survive and reproduce become more common. Artificial selection, when humans choose certain traits to breed, like in dogs or crops. So that is kind of a evolution that human is going to guide it. Then mutation, which is the other like way for biological evolution, which when random changes in DNA create new variation. And also there are some other mechanism like genetic drift, when random changes in gene frequencies, especially in a small population, and then gene flow, movement of genes between populations, like when animals migrate, or non-random mating, when individuals choose mates with specific traits changing gene frequencies. Okay, let's talk about the natural selection. The concept of natural selection was first presented by Charles Darwin. It explains how population change over time based on traits that help organisms survive and reproduce. There are three critical elements of natural selection: variation, competition, and adaptation. Variation means that individuals in a population are different from each other. These differences can be passed on to their offspring. For example, some giraffe might have longer necks than others. competition happens because resources like food, water, and space are limited. Even though animals may have lots of babies, not all of them survive. This creates a struggle for survival. For instance, if giraffes are competing for leaves on tall trees, only some will get enough to eat. Adaptation refers to traits that help an organism survive and reproduce. Individuals with these advantageous traits are more likely to capture resources and have babies. So over time, the environment selects these traits so they become more common in the population. For example, giraffe with longer necks can reach more leaves, survive better, and have more offspring. So basically, variation, competition, and adaptation work together over time to shape population and drive evolution. Now let's compare Lamarck's idea of evolution with Darwin's idea. Lamarck's hypothesis suggested that giraffes originally had short necks. According to Lamarck, giraffes stretched their neck to reach food on tall trees. Over time, by just stretching their neck become longer. And these acquired traits were passed on their offspring. However, this is not correct. Because traits that an organism acquired during its lifetime, like stretching a neck, cannot be inherited. Darwin's hypothesis is different. He said that originally giraffes varied in neck length. Some had short necks, some had long necks. They competed for food on tall trees, and giraffes with longer necks were more successful at reaching leaves. These long-necked giraffes were more likely to survive and have offspring. Over many generations, natural selection caused most giraffes to have long necks, and these traits were passed on genetically to their offspring. So the key difference is Lamarck thought acquired traits were inherited, while Darwin showed that evolution happens through variation and natural selection. Now let's talk about the evidence of evolution. Scientists have found many types of evidence that show organisms share a common ancestor. The main types are fossil evidence, biogeographical evidence, anatomical evidence, and biochemical evidence. Let's go through them one by one. Fossil evidence. Fossils are one of the best sources of evidence for evolution because they show how life has changed over time. A fossil is basically the remains of a species that lived a long time ago, anywhere from 10,000 years to billions of years. A fossil can be trails, footprints, worm casts, preserved dropping, pieces of bones, impression of plant in rock, insect trap in tree resin. So, for example, prokaryotes like bacteria are the first sign of life in the fossil record. By studying the fossils, scientists can see gradual change over time and how species evolve over time. Now let's talk about the biogeographical evidence of evolution. Biogeography is the study of where plants and animals live around the world. It shows us that geography influences evolution. So, for example, different islands or different continents have different plants and animals, even if the environment are similar. Darwin's finches on the Galapagos Islands had different big shapes depending on the type of food available. So animals like kangaroos, koalas are found only in Australia. Sometimes similar fossils are found on the continent and they were once connected. So it's showing that species shared a common ancestor before the continent drifted apart. So biogeography help us see how the distribution of a species is connected to the evolution and geography. Now let's talk about another biological evidence, which is anatomical evidence. Um, these are clues that show we all share a common ancestor. So we have the different type of anatomical evidence. We have homologous structures, analogous structure, the vestigial structure, and also the embryological evidence. First, we have homologous structure. The homo means same. So these are body parts that have the same origin. Even they look different or do different things. For example, look at the human arm, a cat's leg, a whale flipper, and bat's wing. They all have similar bone structure. Humerus, radius, carpal, metacarpal phalanges. Even though they are used differently, like human grab, cats run, whales swim, and bats fly. This tells us that these animals came from a common ancestor a long time ago. Analogous structure, these are a little different. They look similar and do the same job. Look at this. Insect wing, bird wing, and bat wing. They're like the shape is similar, but their wings are built differently. So analogous structures show similar adaptation to the environment, not shared ancestry. And then we have vestigial structure. There are body parts that used to have a purpose in ancestors, but are reduced or useless now. For example, whales have tiny leg bones, which is remnant from when their ancestor walked on land. Humans have a tailbone, which is called coccyx. So then we don't have actually tail anymore, right? But the coccyx actually is our tailbone. Then vestigial structures are like evolutionary leftovers, telling us about our history. Next, embryological evidence, looking at how animals develop before they're born. Early embryos of vertebrae like fish, bird, humans look very, very similar. Look at this. That is a embryo of fish, reptile, bird, human. Very, very similar, right? They all have tail and also pharyngeal pouches. So you can see here the pharyngeal pouches, pharyngeal pouches, pharyngeal pouches for all of them. All of them, they have tail, tail. And so then in fish, those pouches become gills, but in humans, they turn into part of the ear, tonsils, thymus, and parathyroid glands. This actually shows that all vertebrae share a common ancestor. Now let's talk about the biochemical evidence. Finally, we have the biochemical evidence, which is about the molecules inside our cells. All living organisms use DNA, ATP, and many of the same enzymes. We all use the same 20 amino acids to make proteins. Humans even share many genes with bacteria and other simple organisms. This is actually telling us that life is connected at a molecular level, which is amazing when you think about it. So then scientists put all of this together in a family tree of life that's showing how species are related and how life has evolved over billion of years. And all of us came from a common ancestor, and it took like million and billion years to develop and evolve from the common ancestor to the different like creatures and also human. Now let's look at how humans are classified and how this shows our place in the tree of life. Instead of memorizing the table, think of it as a series of groups from broad to very specific. From domain, supergroup, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and finally species. Human belongs to domain Eukarya, which means our cells have a nucleus and also the other membrane bound organelles. Basically, our cells are more complex than bacteria. Within Eukarya, we belong to supergroup Opisthognatha. The Opisthokonta group is defined by cells which they have flagella. This is a feature we share with other animals and also fungi. Then humans are in the kingdom Animalia, which this means we are multicellular. It means made of many cells, motile, we can move, heterotrophic, which means we eat other organisms for energy. We do not make our own food like plants. Next level is phylum. So we belong to phylum Chordata, which all the members have at some point in their life a dorsal-tubular nerve, like our spinal cord, and also pharyngeal pouches, which in human these develop into parts of the ear, tonsils, and glands. And then as mammals, humans have a hair, mammary gland, then vertebrae or our backbone. So in the order, humans are in the order primates, which includes apes, monkeys, and then their features include a well-developed brain, adaptation for living in trees in our evolutionary past, like grasping hands and flexible limbs. And then in the family, this is the family of a hominidae, this family of great apes, which includes humans, chimpanzee, gorillas, orangutans. So humans are adapted for upright stance and walking on two legs, bipedalism. And in genus, we are in Homo. Within the genus Homo, we are highly intelligent and able to make and use tools. And then species, finally, is a Homo sapiens. So we are modern humans, have a well-developed speech center, the brain, and allowing complex language. So basically from domain to species, each step tells us something about who we are and how we are related to other life forms. You can think of it as zooming in from all eukaryotic life down to the modern human. Did you know that humans are actually primates? Yes, primates include lemurs, monkeys, apes, and humans. So, by studying primates, we can see the traits and adaptations that humans share with other species. For example, we have forward-facing eyes, grasping hands, large brains, and social behaviors just like other primates. And looking at our DNA, human and apes are 98.8% similar, which shows our close evolutionary relationship. Now let's compare the human skeleton to a chimpanzee skeleton. These differences help us understand how humans are adapted for bipedal walking. First, look at the spine. This red line, which in human it exceeds from the center of the skull, but in the ape, it exists from the back of their skull. This helps human balance when standing upright. Then look at the spine one more time. The spine in human, it has a S shape, and while the ape spine has a slight curve. This shape acts like a shock absorber for walking on two legs. And then look at the pelvis. Um, Humans have a bowl-shaped pelvis which supports internal organs when standing upright, but apes have a longer and narrower pelvis. And now let's look at their femur or thigh bones. So in humans, they angle inward toward the knee, which helping us like walk efficiently, but in apes, the femur angles out a bit. Then the knees in human is designed to support more weight, which is important for bipedal walking. And also, if you look at the feet, humans have an arch in the foot, which help absorb the impact and provide spring while walking. Apes have flat feet, which are better for climbing. So overall, these skeletal differences show that humans are specialized for upright walking, while chimpanzees are more adapted for climbing and moving in trees. Now let's talk about human evolution and our relationship with chimpanzee. Humans and chimpanzees share a common ancestor that lived between 5 and 7 million years ago. Since then, we have evolved separately. It's important to know that humans did not evolve from today's apes. Today's apes are our distant cousins, not our ancestors. So we are living at the same time on Earth. So then human evolution is marked by several major changes. Bipedalism, the ability to walk upright on two legs, which fit our freed our hands for other tasks. Then increased brain size. Over time, our brains grew larger and more complex, allowing advanced thinking and problem solving. Reduction in dentition. Our jaws and teeth changed, becoming smaller as our diet and tools changed. Development of tools and technology, so humans create and use tools to manipulate the environment and make their life easier. Complex social structure and communication, so we form groups, share tasks, and communicate, which help us survive and thrive together. So by looking at these features, we can see how humans have evolved in unique ways compared to our primate cousins.